You in Dad's place?
Where am I sitting, Dex? Dex, where am I going to sit?
Where's he going to sit? You're in Dad's place, aren't you?
I've got to sit somewhere.
You have to get down just for a little bit.
Let me sit
Just for a
down.
little bit. Let Dad sit down.
Come on, budge. Budge up.
Chief.
Budge. Let me sit down. You're going to sit there? Okay.
Dobry den,
Zdravejte.
and welcome back to our little Bulgarian adventure.
It's been a bit of a slow week, but we've had lots going on, if that makes sense.
We've had our most social week for a while.
We have, yes.
2 sets of visitors. We started on Friday with Ivan and Teresa on their way back to the UK for a little bit.
Well, they brought us a house guest.
Yes, we've now got Dexter staying on dogcation with us.
Yes, and he's, I don't know what he's eating, something. Anyway, so that was, they arrived on Friday. We took them to the airport Saturday, and Dex has, well, made himself at home, really.
Yes, he's been very well behaved, really.
Yeah. Then on Monday we had another set of guests.
Yes, we had Rich and Tony from Ant and Dick's Excellent Adventure.
I'll put a link somewhere. Yes, they popped in to see us as they travelled around Bulgaria, had a spot of lunch, had a chat, and had a lovely day.
Yeah, it's not nice to have guests.
It was. And then, after all that excitement, our floor finally dried.
Yeah.
You remember last week we were waiting for the varnish? Well, that took a long time.
It wasn't 24 hours.
No. Don't believe what it says on the tin.
No. But we did have very high humid temperatures.
We did.
I don't suppose that helped.
Probably not. But we were eventually able to carry on with the room. This is what we did this week. This week we're carrying on, finishing off this back room before we bring the furniture back in. Last week you saw me building this cupboard. You saw me putting in skirting board. I've already moved the socket from there to over there with the cable. What we have to do is obviously finish off this. We're going to fill the gaps, we're going to plaster it, we're going to paint it, put some architrave around to finish it off. Lynn's going to be making a curtain which will go on the inside just to cover the boiler, and the hoover will sit in there as well. We're on a skirting board here, we're putting a shelf across the top. It boxes in the cables and the pipes, so that's the purpose of that. I've also got to sand this down, bit of plaster, bit of paint. So we're aiming to finish off all around the room, ready for bringing the furniture in. Now the skirting board is straight, but the walls against it aren't necessarily straight, so we've got to fill the gaps, and then both underneath the boards and at the back of the boards, just finish it off, tidy up. The varnish did eventually dry. It took until Sunday evening, Monday, for the varnish to finally dry properly. But it is now dry, so I can carry on. So these are my first jobs. Let me get on with them. Well, that's the boiler enclosure plastered. I just need to let it dry up a bit, give it a quick sand and then a paint. We filled the gaps down the side with tape. We've made the front edge corner also with kind of a special metal tape type stuff, just to give it a corner and an edge. Like I say, once it's dry, we can paint it and finish it. I've also started filling the gaps around the skirting boards. In typical me fashion, I've managed to totally miscalculate how much filler I had. I have one tube of, well, half a tube of filler. I thought I had 2.5. Turns out I've got 4 tubes of adhesive and half a tube of filler. So I have to get some more of that to finish that off, but hopefully the shop in the village does that, so we'll find out in the morning. I've also taken a chance to plaster over some rough patches that I found on the walls from when I did it last time. As we're painting the walls again, it seemed to make sense to plaster them, smooth them out, and then we'll be able to finish them up properly. So the plastering of the cupboard has been done. We've given it its first coat of paint. You can see around the top there's a little bit of extra filling I had to do. That will be covered by the second coat. But it's getting there. I've still got the architrave to do for that part to finish it off, but it's coming along nicely. And you can also see where we've put the top on the box for the pipes. We've had to build up at the far end because the pipe was higher than the skirting board, but it fixes to the top of the skirting board, boxes everything in, and makes it a lot tidier. And finally, this is where the plug or the socket used to be before we moved it. So you can see we plastered over it, we painted it, and now you can't see it at all, which is how it's supposed to be. So we're now almost ready to put this room back together. We'll do that over the weekend and show you how it looks next week.
Yeah, so we're almost back to having our room back, which will be excellent.
It will. It's been inconvenient, I think is the best word for it.
Yes, it's amazing how every other room ends up in quite a state when you've got one room out of commission.
Well, anybody who's done anything like this knows that. One room destroys about 3 or 4 others.
Yes, you just feel you're constantly shifting things around, don't you?
We did. But we've had the weather for it this week. It's not been too hot. We've had a fair bit of rain as well.
Yes, it's been a quite strange week weather-wise.
Mm.
It'll start everything growing again. I was
It
getting
will.
used to doing less regular strewing, but I think I'll have another bout of it next week now.
Yeah, but we're almost at the end of strimming season, so.
Almost.
Almost, yes. Those of you who are interested in looking upwards, there's something interesting happening in the next couple of nights.
Yes, there's the Perseids meteor shower.
Yes, it happens every year apparently around this time, but this year, because of the waning moon, I believe it is, the visibility should be excellent.
Yes,
So
you have to line your back.
line your back with your feet pointing northeast or northwest, one or the other. Point them north, can't go wrong. Not much light pollution, so go find a dark field, look up. They reckon the best time is after midnight and before dawn.
Yeah.
So if you're late, go to bed, or if you can't sleep, pop in the garden, have a look.
Well, I think that's about it for us this week.
I think it is, yes. Like I say, we've had a busy week without doing too much. So hopefully next week we'll have our room back together and we can move on to something else. So until next week, it's time to say,
Stay safe.
be well.
Do skoro.
Do skoro.